Well, hello, folks, and welcome to the Dieter Melhorn Fishing Podcast. I hope you're having a good day, whatever day it is that you happen to be listening to this podcast, or if you happen to be watching it on YouTube. I'm now doing these podcasts as a video podcast too, putting the broadcast out on YouTube so that you can watch it or you can listen to it in your traditional podcast format, wherever it is that you listen to it. It's pretty much on every podcast platform out there. And it's also available, obviously, on YouTube where you can watch it. So, pretty cool way to get all this stuff out to everybody so you can check it out. So, today we're going to talk about another record catfish, a record that was just broken here this past week in July. It's from North Carolina. Many of you have probably seen this online. It made a pretty good pass and circulation around, kind of made the run there after it happened. It's amazing what has happened in North Carolina in really the past, I don't know, since 2015, I guess 7 years or so. Zach Royce broke the state record that was in place for a while. It was a sub 100 pound fish. North Carolina had never produced a blue catfish over 100 pounds. And Zach Royce broke the record, broke it back to back. He actually had two of them within 24 hours. Just a phenomenal, Ripley's Believe It or Not story there. That was, I think it went from, the previous record was like 89 pounds, somewhere around there. I think Eric Fincher had it. Zach broke it with like a 95, somewhere around there, and it went to 105, and it stayed there until not long. That's the crazy part. That was out of Lake Gaston, which is in the eastern part of North Carolina, way east. And Landon Evans broke the record the next year with a 117-pound fish. Really an amazing jump to go from where the record was at 89 to where Zach went with breaking 100 to 117 pounds. A phenomenal jump there. And it stayed for a little while and made it about 4 years. And if you watch any of my videos on YouTube, you'll see an interview that I did with Joey Baird at the Catapalooza Fishing Expo in Pigeon Forge this year. Joey Baird was there working with the folks from Catch the Fever. He was a recipient of the $10,000 prize for catching a state record catfish in North Carolina. Catch the Fever, Big Cat Fever, has a program, if you haven't heard of it, to where if you catch a fish and follow the proper steps, you can win $10,000. You can actually win an additional $5,000 if you have on any of the Catch the Fever apparel, a hat, a shirt, something like that, a hoodie. And anyway, Joey Baird won that prize, that award. Zach Royce did too. He did it when he broke the record. But yeah, I did a video with him. Check it out on the channel. I'll put you a link. And but he busted it with 121 pounds. This was last year. This was July 4th weekend. I think he actually caught it on the 5th. And amazing fish, 121 pounds, and again, in a relatively short period of time in North Carolina, you're going from 2015 to 2020, going from 105 to 121 pounds. I mean, these numbers are just skyrocketing up. And is there something in the water? Yeah, there is. It's called big blue catfish, and they're getting bigger and bigger and bigger. We'll get into that more as to some of the reasoning theories behind why that's happening. But this past weekend, a guy by the name of Rocky Baker caught another state record blue catfish in North Carolina. It's gone from 2015 or a new record, 2016, 2020, 21, and now 22. And interestingly, fairly close to the same date. What's interesting is a bunch of these fish, I know a lot of us that fish for big catfish, we always say wintertime's better. Now, Zach Royce caught his fish, I believe, in late December, January. That's when all of my personal best fish have always come, in that colder temperature. But these fish are being caught in July I mean, in June, July, warm weather. And I think a lot of this has to do with more people are out fishing. The world record catfish, I believe, was caught in June. I had some notes here about it. I think it was called world record. The current one, Nick Anderson, June 18th. That was back in 2011. We'll talk more about that fish too in a minute and how it all ties into some of this. But I think more people are out on the water fishing in the summertime, so that leads to the opportunity to catch more big fish. It's just you got more, bait in the water people out fishing. But these are coming in the summertime. These are coming in heat. Outside of the world record that Nick on, most of them have come kind of post spawn, kind of on the back side of it. But back to Rocky's fish, a great fish. I text with him and talked to him about it a little bit, and I'll give you some of the info on that fish, and then we'll get into kind of why some of this is happening and where it's happening and kind of what's interesting about all of that. He was fishing with a guy named Justin Clifton, and he credits Justin for being as big a part of the record as anything was. He was the one that actually helped him net the fish and get it into the boat. What a lot of people don't realize is netting a fish that size is tough. And it's, I ain't going to say impossible, but a lot harder when you're doing it by yourself, especially if you're fishing in any river current or any place where there's any moving water. It just makes it that much worse. But yeah, he credits Justin Clifton with helping him get the fish in the boat. You got to think, guys, that's like lifting a small person into the boat. I mean, just getting that over the side of the boat is tough to do. But he said, I text with him some the morning after he caught it, and I appreciate you taking the time to do that, because I know when somebody catches one of these fish, their phones blow up. You get it out there on social media, you're going to start getting calls from your buddies, your friends, people you barely know, and then it's going to turn into people you don't know that are, like me, hitting you up about information about it. You're going to get your writers, sports writers from different websites, magazines, that kind of thing. And then you get national media coverage too on these things. These things are exciting for national media. They love seeing big catfish. And there was some national media coverage on this, but text with him. And he said his previous personal best, and this guy's no stranger to big fish. Okay, the cool thing about somebody like this catching the fish, just like Joey Baird catching, the record, Zach Royce, is these aren't just some, guy out fishing and casually catches it and looks into it. This guy's won tournaments down there. He's won championships. He's a true trophy catfish fisherman. He knows what he's doing. He's equipped to do it. His previous personal best was 80 pounds. So, like I said, no stranger to big fish. He knows what he's doing, what he's after. Fishing with Mad Cat's rods. That's one of the relatively newer rods. It's on the scene now. And I think actually Justin may be a part of may be a designer or help with some of the configuration of those rods and stuff. And 40-pound Berkeley Spectrum line, 100-pound leader. He got a big enough leader, that's for sure. You can pull the fish in all that. A 9/0 Charlie Brown hook, kind of some old school, kind of nothing fancy, nothing crazy there. And the interesting thing was, he told me they were actually fishing for eater size fish, and he said it was about a 3-inch gizzard shad that he caught it on. Now, if he's telling the truth, and I have no reason to doubt him, that's not a big bait, guys. And it goes to show you, if he truly caught it on a piece of bait that small, you don't know what's going to hit. I mean, and that's just the way it is with whatever bait you're fishing with. You can fish the big baits. Sometimes they produce the big fish. They definitely eliminate the little fish, but we've talked about that before. Sometimes you can put some monster fish in the boat, as he did on some small baits. And instead of talking about 15 to 20 minutes to land, I don't know. I don't think he has any video footage of it. They've got, I was asking for some pictures, which is one of the benefits of watching the YouTube version of the podcast. You'll actually get to see some images of this. We can't do that on a podcast. We can't show you pictures. But, if you're listening to it driving or flying or riding somewhere, when you get back home, you can watch the video and you can see some of the images of this fish. But the crazy thing is, and this is something I want to get into here that's kind of, interesting and something for you folks to keep in mind if you ever catch a record fish. The one thing that is unique, I mean, I've talked to some people about this, to the catfish world, is most fish that are a record fish are brought to the scales in a cooler. They're thrown on ice, they're killed. There's not even a second thought to trying to keep them alive and releasing them alive. Probably the exception may be tarpon fishing, some of the IGFA records with maybe bonefish permit, something like that, to where they're trying to live release these fish. But it's an oddity in the catfish world that we try to release the fish. At least most people do. It's something that's become more and more popular over the past 10 or 15 years. Part of it is because these are hardy fish. They can be released. They can be kept out of the water for a while. And you can put them back in. But Rocky Baker did what Joey Bear did, Zach Royce did, is they wanted to get these fish back into the water alive. And they went to great lengths to get it weighed on certified scales, keep it alive. He said he had to drive over an hour to this bait and tackle place. I think it's Easy Bait and Tackle. They have a certified scale. They have a large tank there. I think that is where one of the recent flathead records was weighed in at. Maybe the blue, was they all came from the same part of the state. But part of the challenge is, guys, when you're trying, it's really easy if you kill the fish. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. Because you can take your time. Fish will probably actually keep some weight. He said he caught this fish at around 9:30, and he didn't get it certified. I had a biologist come out until like 5:30 that morning. So that's a long time. Fish will lose weight. They're going to expel their stomach contents, depending on what's in their. If you got a gallon of water and fluid in their stomach, you're looking at 8 pounds. If you got half that, you're looking at 4 pounds. So the fish probably, as with most trophy fish, weighed more than, when it was caught than what it was. And that's because of the contents and the time it takes to get to scale. But it took him a while to get to scale. They got it there, put it in a holding tank until the biologist got there. And that's the other thing, folks. There's some steps you got to go through. Some states do it differently too. We'll get into that in another podcast with the way different states do it. For an IGFA record, they've got a certain set of rules for, some states require biologists to see it. Some states just require witnesses. It varies. If you can get a biologist or a DNR agent there as a witness to the fish, identifying the species, it makes it a lot more clear in the end. But they got this guy there, the biologist there, they weighed it, and it amazing fish. And if you're listening to the podcast, when you see it, you'll be amazed. And what's interesting about this is how all of a sudden in this, as we talked about earlier, in this, what are you looking at? 7-year period. North Carolina went from being kind of at they weren't really on the radar for big fish. Okay. They weren't really out there as far as a big fish destination. There's some good fish here. I fish in some waters that's got good fish, but where I'm at in the central part of the state, or the western part, it's not really known for big fish. Really, the eastern part wasn't either. There were good fish, but fish this size. And what has happened here with this fish, I believe, if my numbers are correct, as far as state records go, this is the third largest fish that is a state record. What I'm getting at is the Virginia state record and the world record is the fish that Nick Anderson caught. That's 143 pounds and change. I believe the previous record to that was from Missouri. That's 130 pounds. And then you've got, I don't think that there's another state record higher than 130 pounds between that and the world record. So, because, that would make sense since there hasn't been one bigger than that caught. So, now there have been bigger fish caught. I've got videos about that. There was another 141 pound fish caught in Virginia. Doesn't become the record because the world record's already from there. So, all of a sudden, North Carolina is the #3 state as far as world record fish go, or state record fish go in the country. So something's going on. Something's going on down in that part of the state. By the way, this was caught out of the Roanoke River, unlike the previous several records coming out of Lake Gaston. This was caught in the Roanoke River. Now, that's just downstream, a little closer to the ocean from Lake Gaston. But the bottom line is there's something in the water, and it's big fish. And it's interesting as to whether that is something that is has to do with DNA of these fish. Are these fish, is there something about this strain of blues that are in there that has a genetic disposition that allows them to grow bigger? Don't really know on that. Is there the fact that maybe there's lower pressure there as far as fishing goes? Where this guy was fishing at, Roanoke River, it's not exactly surrounded by a lot of people and a lot of stuff. Unlike some areas that you may go to that, if you're on the Mississippi, you're around St. Louis, Memphis, something like that. A lot of population, a lot of people fishing the waters. Place a little more remote, a little more off the beaten path, maybe a little less pressure, no major metropolitan areas around. Maybe that's a factor. Maybe it's a factor that it's a little harder to fish. Don't know, but there is something out there. Is it a factor that this is kind of on the lower end, the downstream side of where everything's draining off of? There's been some, I've discussed this with biologists and other fishermen, in that the further you get from the mountains, the more nutrient rich the waters are. There's just more stuff. There's just more runoff. There's just more, it's why the waters look dirtier and nastier. There's more nutrients and stuff in them. Not exactly pretty to look at, but does that play a part? Is there more stuff in the water that provides more nutrients for, the microorganisms, the bait fish, all of that provides a great food source for these bigger fish to feed on? Don't know, but the bottom line is something's going on in eastern North Carolina with the fish and the size of the fish. And from what discussing this, the chatter that's been going on over the past several days about this fish, there's a lot of big fish down there in that area, and it's phenomenal good fishing. So, Rocky released his fish alive. He took the time to go back, drove the fish back to where it was caught, and put it back into the water and released it alive. And you got to commend these guys for going through the time and effort to do this, because like I said, it's very easy to throw one of these fish in the cooler, throw it on ice, get back home, go to bed, get up with the biologist around noon the next day, go weigh it, and you're eating some Mexican and drinking margaritas and celebrating a new record. And but these guys, many of these guys out there have went to extreme lengths to get these fish back alive, and I got to commend them for that. It's why when one dies, and it will happen, it's not the end of the world. I mean, I know some people get bent out of shape over, and you should have never tried to win. Listen, a fish that's lived that long, most of these fish are 18 to 25, 26 years old. They've done their thing. Their spawn, their DNA is well spread throughout that river system. They've done a lot, and they've contributed a lot to that ecosystem. So if you lose one, even after all those efforts, it's not the end of the world, in my opinion. I think these guys go through a lot to try to keep them alive. And like I said, it's interesting that this is something kind of unique to the catfish world, and makes me proud to be somebody that fishes for catfish, in that people go to these kind of lengths to keep a fish alive, to get it weighed. And I think that's really cool. And I commend these guys, congratulate, Rocky Baker on the record, and his buddy Justin for coming out there and helping out and putting up with all that stuff, and stood with him through all this, man. It's a phenomenal fish, and another record from North Carolina. Is there going to be another one? Absolutely. I don't think we've seen the end of big fish in North Carolina. I think, like I said in some other videos, I think this will be broke, and I think definitely something in the 130s is possible. And it may happen next week. At the rate we're going, it'll happen next year. It may be a ways down the road, who knows? But yeah, I definitely think in that system down through there, Lake Gaston. And let me say this too. All of this stuff is downstream from Kerr Lake, which is on the North Carolina-Virginia line, where the world record came from. 143 pounds and change. It's where Dale Lowe's fish came from. The fish that was caught in the Ice Bowl, the largest catfish ever caught in a catfish tournament anywhere. On that same lake that is upstream from where these fish were caught. There's something in that watershed down through there that is working out for producing world-class blue catfish. And it's something that is relatively recent. Obviously, these fish are not indigenous to these waters. They're transplants. They were put in there, whether it be by the state or fishermen moving them from lake to lake. These are relatively new as far as, species go. It's not like the Mississippi or Tennessee River where these fish have been around. That's their native waters. These are non-indigenous. So that's good for some people. That's great for us anglers. A lot of people don't like it though. And that's chatter for another podcast. But the bottom line is there's something working good down there. And congratulate these guys doing what they did, catching the fish, getting it back in the water, getting it alive, and phenomenal stuff. So again, if you're listening to the podcast, go look at the video version. You can see some pictures of these fish or this fish, and check it out. It's worth seeing. Great fish, and bam, another record. So I appreciate you guys listening. I appreciate you watching on YouTube. Any of you guys that are listening to the podcast, you can leave comments now, by the way, on YouTube videos. YouTube turned my comments back on. People are leaving comments, going good. Podcast's a little bit harder, so as always, go to my website, DieterMelhornFishing.com. You can leave, there's a contact section there. You can send me a comment, get them all the time. There's also links to the YouTube channel, the guide service stuff that I do, some of the gear that I use. I always get questions about the gear I use. All that stuff's over there. So check that out, and until next time, we'll catch you out on the water. Well, folks, if you made it this far, thank you for watching. Here are a couple more videos that I think you're going to like. I'd watch that one and then that one. No, do that one first and then that one. I don't know. Just watch them both. They're both good.